Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright, hi everybody, welcome to my vlog with spoilers for my read of Alchemised by SenLinYu. A few things before we get into it. This is my intro to it. I have already read the book. You're going to see me look like this at the beginning, and then you'll see me look like this at the end when I summarize this. I read this book over 2 days. I filmed some clips. I don't normally vlog for my main channel anymore. My vlogs are pretty much exclusively for patrons, except for a very few rare occasions, and this one I felt like had to be one. But in a lot of ways, I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn, I don't, but just as facts, with the audience I have, I know that in the last 3 years, I've convinced a lot of people to read this fic here, okay? This is a physical copy that my friend Joe bound for me after my friend Joe convinced me to read it. Literally, she made this for me for my birthday in 2022, which was when I was, what was I turning? I was 29 then. So 3 years ago, I read this. I know I read it in January, well, or was it December of the month? Now I don't even remember when, but it's been over 3 years since I read this. And since I read it, I fully got into reading fanfics. I've hosted fanfic readathons. I've convinced you guys to read some. And so I just want to set it up straight going in. I know a lot of people will probably watch this vlog who don't watch my normal content, who are curious about if they should read it, all of those things, right? And hopefully in listening to my rambles about it, you can decide for yourself if you want to. But as I go through this, I know in some of the clips I talk about if you should read Manacled first. I mean, the answer I think is no, but like, so I'll put that out there so you don't have to wonder, but like, I explain why. I also understand if you still will, but just know that SenLinYu themselves has said that the whole point of this is like, if you're taking the fan fiction and making it his own work, it no longer relies on this. It shouldn't. Otherwise, it's still a fanfic and shouldn't be published. And also, they're very much trying to divorce themselves from the original IP. And let me be clear, that's not what this video is going to be about. Okay, I've talked about that in other videos before, in Q&As and discussions. Don't watch this video and then feel the need to comment on we shouldn't be reading them at all. Don't watch this vlog then, because the vlog is going to tell you that, spoiler alert, I enjoyed this story a lot, okay? So please don't come here to do that. I'm going to go through both in this intro and then my outro of it, of explaining why, and you can decide from there. But if you're going to come here to yell at me about why I shouldn't be reading it or try to shame people in my comments for reading it, I'm not keeping those around. Those are your beliefs. They are perfectly valid. Go make those on your own channel or on your own socials. I've already talked about how I feel, what my complex feelings are, what I think about it. That's not what this video is about. So just save it. I'm not listening to it, and don't try to shame people in my comments about it. There's room for that, and those discussions should be had, but fact is, people are going to read this, you know, and I'd rather give honest opinions on that and share where I think there's room for stories like these and how they work, rather than trying to just shame people out of it, because that's very rarely ever works, okay? So anyway, I just want to put that in the intro, that this book, this vlog about reading this book is going to be all about if I'm truly finding value in it, if it still moved me the same. Yes, making some comparisons, because that's what people want to know, okay? People want to know. So if we continue to tiptoe around that, like, it's not really helping. And I hope that by the end of this vlog, I can explain my own opinion, laying out the facts for if I think Manacled still needs to be read, if you should just be diving into this instead of just what the, you know, the community might tell you. Because let's be honest, the community can't make up their damn minds. So let me just share with you my opinions and you can decide, okay? So anyway, that's enough of an intro, but just a few other things before you get into the vlog stuff. Number one, I'm a hot mess while I'm reading those. I'm not filming on the days that I'm filming those clips. So I'm in my normal, well, I mean, I'm always wearing bookish shirts and have my hair all messy. But there's also multiple clips my air conditioner is running. It was very hot this week, and every time I had a thought or a feeling, I wasn't going to get up and go turn the air conditioning off. So just be prepared for that. Also, at the end of when we come back, I will show you the cross stitch project I'm working on, because there's a couple clips where I'm doing, you know, some aesthetic reading in the coffee shop where I'm working on a cross stitch project. I will show you the final project when we come back. But anyway, I hope that's good. I mean, I know I'm not going to please everyone. There's people going to be mad that I read it. Like, that's going to happen. That's fine. But just save that for a different video. Okay, this one is just about my thoughts on it. Again, they will be spoilery. So this isn't going to be a non-spoiler review. When I do my next weekly wrap-up, which this video I'm planning it to go up on Sunday, which normally my weekly wrap-up will go up on, but I'm going to be out of town. So in the next weekly wrap-up I do, which will be what, October 4th or 5th or something, I will have a non-spoiler review in that one, okay? So yes, I know that means you can't watch this, but this is not a safe for you vlog if you don't want any spoilers about it, because as you'll see when I get into it, I'm going to be talking about comparisons, what I think is still working well, me crying over certain parts of it, and I'm going to get into the nitty-gritty of it. So if you don't want any of those spoilers, wait until my weekly wrap-up to hear those, which will be a bit more, you know, I'll also have had longer to sit with it and think about it, and we'll get into it. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the vlog. Again, sorry for some of the rough footage and everything, but I normally just vlog for my patrons and they don't care what I look like or what's going on, so just be prepared for that. All right, see you soon. Okay, it is heating up already, so don't mind the car hair and face. Like, this is what happens when we start early in the morning. But I stopped by Target and the goods are secured. Here we go. At Target with my Target card and discount, that made Alchemised only $24.50. Oh, that's right, I didn't use my Target card, but it was 30% off the list price, which if you were to order at Barnes & Noble, it's $35. So it's definitely worth it at Target. I'll fully open it and everything when I get to the coffee shop and show you, but here it is. One thing already is the map on the inside is laminated, so this is extremely slippery to hold up. But there it is. I also grabbed some snacks because you gotta have those. They have these caramel apple clusters with pretzels. That looks good. I was gonna buy the milk chocolate ones, and then I saw these on the one table, so I got some caramel apple crunches. And then one of my favorite treats in the fall is actually apple cider donuts. I just love them. So grab these. So I am going to go to the coffee shop to get started with the book, so I'll probably sneak in my clusters, but I'll save the donuts for home later today. But anyway, yeah, it is getting hot in here. It was only 55 when I left my house, and it's already heating up a lot. So I'm going to head to the coffee shop, and I don't know how far. I'll probably just get a good start, and then I'll film a clip and let you know what I'm thinking so far. But I do have the audiobook, so I'm going to hit play on that, and then we'll see how it goes. I'm excited. Okay, hi. I think it's time for an update. I've just been so sucked into it that I've been like waiting to get to certain parts to update, but then I realized that the longer I wait, the more I'll have to say. So we might as well just do this because I was planning to film a clip at the coffee shop, but it was one of those days where literally every single seat in the place was filled. And so to film a clip would have been really conspicuous, but it got very warm. Oh, it's not supposed to be this warm still, okay? It is almost October. But anyway, I'm home and I'm sitting at my puzzle table. I was working on my cross stitch at the coffee shop. I'll show you guys a clip of that later. Or I think maybe I already put in a clip of me cross stitching and listening to it. But I did get the audiobook. I am, let's see. This is a big beastie, okay? Let's see. Here it is naked here with the gold Ouroboros design, right? And I am 140 pages in, and this is what that looks like. So this is 130, or not 100, 1,030 pages. So I'm only like 10% in. This feels like a Sarah J. Maas book. But okay, since this is my first clip I'm filming, I'm planning to have filmed an intro clip for you guys, so I'm sure I talked a bit there, but I don't know what I'm gonna end up saying, so let's just talk here. Couple things that I'm looking for while reading this book is I want still that heavy feel, which I know that sounds, but one of the things about Manacled that enraptured me was how dark it was, and yet I couldn't look away. And as I'm sure I'll say a bazillion times, a big part of that is because it was my first like major fan fiction I'd read. B, because it involved, you know, characters that I knew and was attached to, and I was seeing them in this horrific, dystopian, twisted place that they were in. And 3, because I was like, is this going to be a romance? Like, what is going to come out of this, okay? And my friend Jo, who I will always and forever give her the credit for getting me to read this, because she talked to me about this story like nonstop while she was reading it and was just urging me. And I was finally like, okay, woman, I will read it, right? And that has been the privilege I've had to be that person for many other people through the years now, right? Many of you who are watching this as well. And if you've read it and you're then watching other people consume it, you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? So those are the aspects that made Manacled so compelling to me. And what I've been the most worried about is that it wouldn't be able to carry over on those things if it was made acceptable for sale, basically, okay? Those are the things that I was the most worried about. And as I've said, especially since reading Rose in Chains, which just felt kind of like an echo of the auction, while not having the same compelling nature to it to me, because everything just felt like a watered down version of the story that I already loved, okay? That is my own personal feel. There's plenty of people who absolutely adored Rose in Chains, including some people I really care about, and I'm not here to dim their love of it. I just wasn't feeling it, and then I also was having kind of some moral issues with it, which again, I've already gone into. So those were the things that I was worried about. But I've been holding out for Alchemised for a couple of reasons. One, let's just be honest, at least in recent memory, Manacled is the fic that got a lot of people into reading fan fiction. It got a lot of people into Dramini. I know it wasn't the only. There's people who've been reading it, been reading fan fiction of all types and styles forever. But I mean on a more mainstream scale, okay? And all the other fics that have been reproduced, they're kind of all because of Manacled, okay? And a lot of them beat Manacled to being delivered, right? Again, these are all Jennifer opinions. No one else have to have them. This is just my own personal journey. And I had been very, very hyped for Manacled, but also, as I said, trepidatious. So what is Alchemized, which, let me hold up this part, because holding up the big heavy book is going to hurt my wrist. I have been very cautiously optimistic for this one, even after being disappointed by Rose in Chains to a degree, because I feel like SenLinYu has just a writing style that I connect with for a dark story more, okay? Something about Rose in Chains for me is that I feel like it is a YA novel just made a little darker to make it an adult fantasy. And that's not just because of no smut or anything, okay? There's not really much in that first book because of what's happening. Like, that is not why. It's just the writing style felt tilted towards a younger audience to me. That is not bad, obviously. New adult and YA are also important. Anyway, I feel like I'm doing a lot of explaining, but I know that this vlog is probably getting out to people besides just my audience. So I'm just trying to make it clear that, again, those are just my opinions and I'm just sharing with you my experience about this, right? This isn't to throw shade on anyone else who feels differently or to say that they're wrong. This is just my experience having read, 200 plus fan fictions at this point, over half of those being Dramini and 99% of them all being in Harry Potter versions, right? So I gotta tell ya, this is really working for me, okay? Those 3 things that I've shared, it is doing all 3 of them for me as of now, okay? I was really worried that I would feel a little bit like jaded after Rose in Chains, but SenLinYu is absolutely appeasing my fears, or assuaging, whatever the word is you say, very quickly, all right? This immediately feels just as dark, like that pit that is in your stomach when you read Manacled, where you're afraid of each page, but you can't look away. That is coming through. That has not been dulled at all. In fact, it feels even more violent because I'll get into a bit more spoilery stuff in a second, which, by the way, I probably said it, but like, this will be a spoiler review because I want to intimately kind of compare and contrast and say why I think this is working or not. So this isn't going to be a spoiler-free scenario for you, but to keep, in case you are still venturing in a little more to that, like, this feels even darker because the kind of embodiment of like dark magic in here is necromancy, right? Instead of just saying like dark magic versus light magic or whatever, this is like necromancy is that dark magic. And so imagine, as it were, our beloved characters, whoever they are, but whoever the good guys were, fighting against evil, but every time they take one of you down, they can then reanimate you for evil. Like, how would you ever win? You're fighting against death itself, and so it's almost a zombie army type situation, which is terrifying. There's also a type of magic that has to do with it's like science-based, which is what you would think with like Alchemized being it. There's metal, a lot of metal-based things, which is cool. But anyway, so I'm really feeling the heaviness part. I'm also feeling immediately sucked in. I'm listening to it, as I've said, and like the narration, fantastic, so good. And also, I do feel immediately attached to Helen, our main character, in a way that wasn't happening for me with Bryony, let's just say, okay? Which that is from Rose in Chains. Just wow. And the thing with Alchemized for me is that it's feeling so much different than Harry Potter land, like the type of magic it is and how it works, especially because it's leaning into science-based, and so it's only the very like structure of things that are feeling the same, as in, like there was like a chosen one in there, but that is in all fantasy, right? And that's the comparison I was trying to make too when I did my review of Rose in Chains, is that there are certain archetypes that you can't trademark, right? There are certain, you know, like the hero's best friend, the Merlin character, like those are just part of fantasy. And so when they appear again and again, that's not because anyone's copying someone, that's because it's the archetype and then they're taking it in their own way, right? It's the example of like, how many Beauty and the Beast retellings are there, right? No one's specifically copying someone else's usually. It's just, it's a basic story, right? And this is feeling very different, right? And I think it is true with this one, more so than I felt with, again, I'm going to keep comparing it because that's my comparison, all right, to Rose in Chains, is that one, to me, felt like the world was very weak. The world building was very weak. It was very simple. And that means that is very like attainable for a lot of people, which is fun. But it also can then feel very flat. And when I was reading that one, everyone felt so easily just popped in place of other of Harry Potter characters that I didn't feel like it really stood on its own. Now, I know that's not true, again, my opinion, because I had friends who've never read the auction that only barely saw the comparisons to Harry Potter, and that's great. Like, again, that's their personal experience. In Alchemised, I'm seeing the parts of Manacled that are the same, which I'll get into in a moment, because like I said, this isn't spoiler free. I'm seeing the parts of Manacled that are the same, but it is a lot harder to find direct correlations with Harry Potter, and that is what I want to see for me, because when I read Manacled, it felt so very different from Harry Potter. The only things that felt the same was the magic system she was building off of, and then she took it further and deeper and did more to it. Or I'm sorry, I should say the SenLinYu is non-binary, but pardon me for messing that up. But the way that they have or had already changed things for Manacled, it is just what made that story so compelling to me. So now to have it stripped of even more of that, and they did build up their own magic system and world, which is what I was hoping for, I am totally locked into it, okay? And I believe that when you have the character who has that amnesia and they're getting pieces coming back to them, it's a great way to share the world without there being too much info dump, right? Because Helen herself is having things come back to her. So it doesn't feel as info dump as it is when in Rose in Chains there was these flashbacks that were filling in every single detail, right? Like we're having stops and stutters of it come back, and there's things that Helen's remembering and she doesn't want to remember them because she doesn't want to share anything dangerous with Farron, I think is the name of the guy in there. So anywho, I just wanted to lay that out there since this is my first check-in, that like those were the things I was looking at, and currently I myself, I'm feeling it. Okay, like I am locked in on this story, okay? So hold on, now I need to change something. I'll be right back. Okay, sorry, the mailman came. I had to go and grab something from him. So now to get in how this one starts, okay? So we start with this woman, Helen. Let me look up the names because, oh, by the way, this is the, this is cool. This is the map of the maze on the inside of this. So beautiful. This cover really is beautiful. I'm very excited for my Waterstones edition, which my friend Helen actually ordered it for me. I can't wait because there aren't really that many special editions of this yet, which I'm surprised about. But anyway, so we have Helen Marino, I think is her name. Yeah, Marino. It said Marino on the audiobook, but it looks like Marino, probably because of all the Mafia that I read with Italian characters. But yes, she wakes in this really creepy scenario where she's been in this stasis, and in the beginning she's being pulled out of this stasis and she doesn't have any memory. she very early on gets told that she's been in stasis for 14 months, and most people who've been put into stasis don't last 6 months before they basically turn into goo and they don't have any of their mind left anymore. But she starts being pulled out, and I won't go into like all the full details, but basically it's a mistake where she was kept, and she was kept partially awake in her stasis, which means her mind has been tortured by being basically awake in this stasis and not being able to move or see, but be conscious. So she has been driven to the edge of lunacy. And so as it discovered that she's getting pulled out, they discover who she is, and that she was put in this stasis mislabeled. And, you know, they know that it was a member of the resistance, which was called the Eternal Flame. The Order of the Eternal Flame, you get it? Order of the Eternal Flame instead of, well, you get it, all right. And supposedly they're all dead. But they know that she was at least a healer who was connected with that group. And so maybe she has information that they need, because what has happened in this world is this is a world of the magic, as we said, is based on alchemy. It's called like alchemy in here. And what the dark side has done is they use necromancy to control the other side. So they can make you immortal, and those who don't want to join the cause are killed, and their bodies are used as basically zombies to do the will of the people in charge. So like I was saying, absolutely terrifying. You're fighting against the void, literally. There is the evil leader, which I forgot what its name is. But we'll just say the Voldemort character in this, he first arose as, you know, trying to recruit people in, and eventually those who didn't want to join in, they were killed and forced to join in anyway. And if you are one of his supporters, you can live forever. And you can actually be put into new bodies as yours degrades, and different people they have different affinities for different types of alchemy. Like there's some that are good with fire, and some that are good with healing, and some that are good with iron, like all these different skills that they have. And they decide, of course, as it will, that her mind has been blocked, and they want to find a way to get to it. But if they can't just kill her and then put someone else in the body to get the information, which is what they want to do, is just remove her from it. But because of the spells or the alchemy that's been done to her mind, the only way to get it out is to basically, I'm dumbing this down, but to squeeze your way in there. And they believe the info that she holds is so important that the leader calls on the High Reeve to get the info from her. And so she gets manacled up. She gets put in these cuffs to prevent her from accessing her power. And she gets sent to the home of this High Reeve. And he is supposed to get this information from her through these sessions where he's slowly burrowing his way into her mind. Okay, so where I'm at right now in this story, there hasn't been anything to do with impregnation. I don't know if that's like coming or what. But what's actually interesting is like there's a whole lot of history I'm skipping over just because, but there's a lot of world building to this that I think is fascinating. Because one of the things is that when Helen became a part of the academy that she went to, she has the skill for healing. And the thing is that they've found that when you have the skill, sometimes when you pass it on, I'm not quite sure if like when you have a child, if it can like twist the power or what it does, I don't know. But the point was when she joined up, she actually took an oath that she wouldn't have any children, and she actually took a step further and was sterilized. And so that is what I'm kind of intrigued on where we're at right now, is that I don't know whether like a child will still be in the plan, if that's going to be like the next phase when they're having trouble getting into her mind. But currently Farron, who again is the High Reeve who she gets gifted to, she hasn't been like raped as of yet, though one of the warnings in the book is that. So I mean, that's a huge part of the story that's kind of like Handmaid's Tale. So I don't know if that's coming. I'd assume because of the healing powers that like they could maybe find a way to heal her sterilization or something. If that's the case, maybe that's what will happen. I don't know. But currently, because there is a breeding program going on where they'd, killed too many of the alchemists, and now they're needing more power to be born, right? Same diff, we've seen it. And so when someone makes that suggestion, she quickly tells them, she's like, well, I've been sterilized, so you can't do it to me, is what she like says. And they were like, why would you let them do that to you? And she's like, I took the oath, so it wasn't that big of a deal to also be sterilized. But I have a feeling they would be able to fix that if they really want to. So I don't know. I'm hanging on to see what happens there. But currently where I'm at is she is with the High Reeve and his wife, and there are different sessions they're doing where he is trying to burrow into her mind and discover how she had survived so long, if there is any part of the eternal flame that has still made it. She has just seen a paper where she reads an article where she was the last member of the eternal flame to be found. Do we know if that's true or not? We don't know. And yeah, there haven't been too many interactions with Farron as of now. So that was a lot, but like I said, I needed to film a clip and just let you know what I was thinking and how it's going. Like I said, I'm only 10% into this. Without like super peeking, I have looked, and there is 3 parts to this. And from what I can tell, this is a single volume of it. Now, I peeked in just a tiny way to see like if there's going to be a cliffhanger or not, because I just wanted to know. And it appears that all of Manacled is distilled into Alchemised, which I think is definitely possible to do. I mean, it's 1,000 pages. It's not like it was distilled that much. Okay. It's still pretty long. So that's kind of encouraging at the same time too, because so many of these, they're always pushed into 2 or 3 books, right? And I'm excited that this is all in one, and we have beginning, flashbacks, and future all in here. So I will check back in, I'm thinking at the end of part 1, and I'll let you know how I'm feeling. But as of now, I'm cautiously optimistic. It's giving me what I want. It doesn't feel too redundant. I still need to pay attention to everything, right? One of the things with Rose and Chains is that so much of it was exactly similar that I just couldn't stay engaged with it, right? And in this, I still have to very much pay attention to everything, and I love that. So I'm gonna keep working on my puzzle, which I'll show you. I'm working on these cows right now, and listening to it. So still many hours to go yet. I'll check back in later. Okay, hello. I'm on the couch now. Unfortunately, I'm getting a headache right now, but it shall not stop me. It hasn't went into a full-blown migraine, but I am lying with an ice pack and listening to my book. So I'm not quite to part 2 yet, but I wanted to update about a few things so that there isn't a whole bunch to update all at once. So I'm on page 240 now. I'm about another 100 pages in. And we have just gotten to the point where, yes, the repopulation program will include Helena. So I think it was kind of interesting how they did this. I kind of like it. I think it also gives a chance for you to start softening towards Farron before the, basically the double forced rapes that are about to happen here, because I stand by the fact that they're both forced into this. It's going to be awful. I'm scared about it already. Whereas in, like, Manacled, the, like, breeding program is kind of the whole point, and her being impregnated would make it easier to take memories from her mind if the child shared the DNA of both of them. In this one, so in the way the story's going in here, Farron has been trying to get memories from Helena this whole time, and he's gotten bits and pieces from her, but not enough. And in the background, which this is what I kind of mentioned in the last one, that, like, they could probably heal her sterilization, because they only did tubal ligation, basically. It's of course called something else, but that's basically what they did, because they didn't do like a hysterectomy, they just did like a sterilization. And the one creepy doctor character in here has reversed it. And because the strain of the I can't remember what it's called, but the procedure there he does to try to get in her mind, it's very strenuous on her body. They have healed her, and now they're going to put her into the breeding program. Basically, let's just call it what it is. They're calling it a repopulation program, but it's the breeding program. And so where we're at right now, she's just been told that the reversal has worked, and so she's going to be put into the repopulation program. And because the leader guy believes that she is an animancer, which is like super powerful, that means they're the ones who can reanimate the dead. The best chance for a very powerful offspring is to have, of course, Farron sire the child with her. So they've both just now been informed that he will be the first one to try to impregnate her. And if it doesn't work within a certain amount of time, she'll be entered into the regular repopulation program. So what we've heard about the repopulation program thus far is, obviously we know what's happening, and that they killed too many of the important bloodlines. And so they've talked about this facility. Basically, we've heard it joked about by some of the other, like, cronies or whatever, that they could basically go there and look at a list of who's there and go try to get these different girls pregnant whenever they want to. But because Helena is more important, it'll be a very specific list of men who get to try to impregnate her or get assigned to do that. And Farron will be the first one to get to do that. So we're entering that phase, but I know I'm really close to part 2. I think I have about 50 pages left until part 2. But I mean, it's really intense, right? Like, I mean, I knew it would be. It is feeding what it's supposed to feed, but let's do a look check here. This is where 250 pages is. So we've got a long way to go. And it's 4 o'clock already, so I don't know that I'll get through this today. I have my audiobook on 1.7 time. I could probably speed it up a little bit, because it says I still have 17 hours to go. So I might speed it up a little bit, but also, as I said, I'm kind of getting a headache, so I might have to take a break for a while and like take a nap and wait for my aspirin to kick in. But it's really intense so far, and it's still really holding my attention. Like, it's really good. So onward we go. Okay, sorry, the air conditioner, again, it's pretty warm. I know I'm wearing a sweater, but like, we don't question it. Okay, so I was laying on the couch earlier, you saw. So I've made it through part 1. We've arrived at part 2, which is just under 300 pages in. Still not even a third of the way fully into this book. But I did, again, I peeked without reading anything to see how big this middle part is. And this is kind of how they have it split, which is about how Manacled is split. Like, the flashbacks are the biggest chunk of that story too. So I just filmed a little clip for Instagram, and I didn't have a lot to say for that either because, well, for Instagram I was trying not to spoil anything, and like I said, this is a spoiler vlog here. But at the same time, like, I'm genuinely loving this and hating it with equal measure, and hating it because, again, if you've read this story, like, it's hard to read. And I just, I was getting emotional getting to the end of part 1. And part of it is, as I've said, I'm not feeling super great. So I'm feeling very emotional and kind of just like on edge. But I was just feeling so much. And they just give you little peeks at it, okay? Like, they just give you a little peek at Farron and how hard this must be for him. Like, you just get the tiniest little peeks at it. But as I said in the last clip, it was decided that they would need to commence with the breeding program. And one of the spots where it's been condensed, which I think it's a good thing, is that it only takes the first, like, breeding cycle, let's say, to get Helena pregnant. So it's just 3 times during her fertile window where they're forced to do it. And it's written in the same way of Manacled, where Farron has to drug himself to do it, you know. They don't like say what it is, but I mean, he takes some form of basically like a performance enhancing drug to be able to get the job done. He's so sickened by it that the second he comes, he like throws up and then like leaves. And he doesn't want her to like to look at him at all. And like, I just feel so much for him too. Obviously I have foreknowledge of like what's gonna happen, but what I think is done really well in here is that even though there's not been much given away, like, you still, you know, believe he's a bad guy. Like, you can tell he's sickened by what he's doing. And you also know, based on the setup of this story, that if he were not to do it, someone else would. And it would be worse. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make this, like, acceptable. It's horrific for both of them. But it's written in a way that, like, I can't help but have compassion for him, too. And again, I know that has to do with, like, I don't need to hold this up. You guys know what book I'm talking about. Because I know that he literally would rather kill himself than be doing what he's doing now. But anyway, one of the things they've condensed is that it only takes the first round of this. They only have to go through it 3 times. And then before her next fertile window, she gets checked by the doctor. We're just calling her a doctor, like she's something else, and she's pregnant. And Helena starts having like a panic attack, basically, because to her this is like the worst plan ever. And there's a scene where she says to Farron, like, I will give you anything, like, this will be your child too, please don't let them do anything to it. And he promises her, and she's like, you know what can you even promise me? You know, like, what can you even promise me? If you want me to eat and take care of myself, I don't want to see you again, right? Which obviously isn't fully a demand that she can make, but like, he honors it in the moment of just like removing himself from the situation. But then it kind of fast forwards time a little bit, and she's not taking well to the pregnancy, and we discover, which Farron didn't know this, but because she is an Alamance or an Animance, this pregnancy is going to be very dangerous. And basically the bad guys, we'll just say it, are either going to get a baby out of her or her memories, and they probably won't get both, because if they're lucky, they'll be able to birth the baby before she dies too soon, you know? Like, it's dark, you guys. This is dark, okay? And if you haven't read Manacled, I don't know that you'll be prepared for how dark this story is, okay? Like, and I don't mean that like you won't be prepared. I mean, you're gonna be surprised how dark this goes, because that was also something I wasn't sure of, is if they would make it feel as dark. And I felt the heaviness right away, because the necromancy that you're seeing done, and just how disgusting it all, like, I thought I was going to be ill a couple times when they're describing what's been done to people and some of the different ways that they torture people, and it's just really tough. And then when I didn't see the like breeding stuff happening right away, I was like, oh, is that the element they're pulling back? No. We've done it. And in fact, it's even another level up because of how now dangerous the pregnancies are. So that's a whole other thing you're forcing on the women, not just forcing them to be pregnant, but forcing them to probably die to give birth to the children. So it's just all fucked 6 ways to Sunday. Like, it's awful. But I was getting really emotional because at the end of part 1, which is, if you've read Manacled, you know, there's this part of the story where the Hermione/Helena character doesn't fully know what's happened in those years that they forgot, because there's multiple years of her life that has been erased. And when she is there are a few key things that start to unlock her mind, and then she like kind of has like a break, and then we go to these flashbacks. Sorry, I'm processing it, and also people are texting me and I'm reading it on. Usually I turn my put my phone in airplane mode when I record things. But she has a few key flashbacks, and then her mind breaks, and we go to the flashbacks, and that's what that big middle chunk is all of those memories coming back, and we're gonna find out what was so important that she hid it. And we already have a bit of a hint, because earlier in this first part, after she sees the High Necromancer, or whatever, the Voldemort standing guy, she realizes that there's a way to kill him, and she confronts Farron with, we figured out how to kill him, didn't we? And what his weakness is. And we haven't addressed that anymore, but I'm sure that is part of what's been erased, and also is the eternal flame really extinguished? Are they really all gone? And one of the last lines of it, which I will read because I can, this is a spoiler review, and this quote is like the energy of the Draco character, yes I know, but of Farron, that makes this story why it's been one of my favorites. And I don't mean that like the story of Manacled, one of my favorites, and it's this: I've warned you that if something happens to you, I will personally raise the eternal flame. That isn't a threat, it's a promise. Consider your survival as much a necessity to the resistance as holdfast, which that's kind of like the Harry Potter character. If you die, I will kill every single one of them. And that energy, that true embodiment of I will let the world burn if something happens to you, that I'm only a part of the resistance because of you. And if they don't see you as important, if they don't treat you as important, then fuck them all. And that's the last quote that she remembers before her mind breaks. And it says, the rest of the past broke free, surging through her mind and swallowing her. And now we go into part 2, which puts us back 4 years in time. And now we're going to find out what happened between her and this person who would say, I will let the eternal flame be consumed if they don't look after you. Who is going to love her so much that they don't care about anyone else? So I hope this vlog is making sense. I don't know. These are my raw reactions, right? There's a reason why my patrons are really the only ones who watch me do vlogs these days, because they're my raw feelings. But man, I don't know that I'm gonna get through this whole thing today. That's all right. It doesn't have to be one day. I wanted it to be. But I'm gonna keep going. I just took a little bathroom break, got a snack, film a clip, and we're into the flashbacks. So I'm really interested to see, so a couple more predictions. So in Manacled, it had a lot to do with like ruins and using, finding out, because that's what they're trying to do, is discover how to kill, again, in Manacled, it's Voldemort, how to kill them. And one of the big debates is that they try to do it without tapping into any form of dark magic, right? Like, we can only defeat the dark with the light, right? But as I mentioned too, like earlier in this, how do you defeat the dark where every time you fight them, you're adding to their number, right? And so one of the things you have to discover is, do we have to, in some ways, meet them blow for blow and not take it easy, So I'm interested to see what that looks like in this version. But again, I mean, going back to just one more time, because I'll reiterate this going through, yes, it feels like Manacled, but it also doesn't feel so derivative of Harry Potter, okay? Which is what I wanted to see happen, and why I think not all fics can you do this with. Because the parts of Manacled that I loved that were about Harry Potter are a big part of why I love Manacled. But Alchemized is managing to, I deeply care about Helena. I really do. I really care about Helena and the situation she's in, and how quickly we're hit in the face with really dark things. You really are kind of forced to just like jump on and connect with her, and you're just, it's just enough of it being above your head that it keeps me paying attention, but not so much that I feel lost. And I don't even fully know how to put that into words yet, because there's no Harry Potter basis that's why I'm paying attention to that, right? Whereas in Manacled, that's what I was holding on to. Also, as I mentioned, it has been refined quite a bit. The writing is so engaging. it's smarter than me, which a lot of things are smarter than me, but it means like I have to pay attention. I can't zone out. And I'm just enthralled by it. Like I wrote to my friend because they were asking how it was going, and I'm like, I'm literally enthralled. Like I cannot look away. And that experience feel is what Manacled did to me. You know, that's all I read for 3 whole days. I eat, breathed, and slept that story, and this is doing that. And in some ways, the evil in this book is even like sicker. Like it's even sicker. So they did not pull punches. They did not, and I didn't know if they could do that. So yeah, okay, I will continue and I'll check back in. Maybe, I don't even know. Like I said, we're only at 300 pages in, so I don't know how long I'm gonna want this vlog to be, but when something else that like stuns me happens, I'll come back in. But I'm very excited, at least now, because now we get to see the love story part, okay? Like, I'll just put that out. The flashbacks in this are gonna be where we have the love story, right? And when you get the love story, it then makes that first part, I mean, that's how it should, hurt so much more, because now when you will reimagine the beginning and you think about the fact that Cain Farron, about what he's been doing to the woman he loves, what she pushed him to do to her for the good of the eternal flame, and that is a whole other level of heartbreaking that we're about to get into. So okay, hi. I realized I needed to do one more clip tonight before I go to bed. Because yeah, we will have to push this into tomorrow. But I've made some really good progress though. We are just past the halfway point in here. Page 550. And this is in chapter 46. So yeah, wow. Okay, so for people who don't know what like the overarching story of Manacled even is, right? I know I've touched on like some of it. So we're in this flashback period, right? So part 1 was all about Helena, who had woken up after not remembering. Many years she's been kept prisoner. She gets handed off to one of the generals of, we'll just say, the dark side to make it easier, right? But the evil side. There's necromancer's evilness. She's put in these manacles that suppress the magic power she has. First, she's just given to this general, Cain Farron, to have him be able to like break into her mind to get any last secrets that the resistance might have been holding. And then as things progress, she then is supposed to basically be impregnated by him to make more powerful beings moving forward. And at the end of part 1, she has been impregnated and her mind snaps open and she starts to flood with the last 4 years of memories that led up to this point. Okay? Because she doesn't remember any of it. It's all been lost during her imprisonment. So then part 2 of the book, which if you've read Manacled, is called The Flashbacks, but is basically a big chunk of the story, because you will now are finding out how Farron and Helena knew each other. He put himself forth that he would be a spy for the Order of Eternal Flame, which is supposed to be the good guys. I mean, they are good in consideration of, like, they're not murdering people and reanimating them. But like anything, they're not perfect either. And that's what you'll discover as you go through the story. It's like 1 a.m. And this is why I was like, I need to film a clip so I don't forget too much for tomorrow. So we go through how she gets in touch with Fearon. So she, of course, knew him from school, from the academy, all these things. He is actually from a very, like, wealthy family, and he'd actually become an undying, which, yes, to make the Harry Potter reference, to think of that as a Death Eater, when he was 16. And so he stopped aging at 16 as well, which, very interesting how they handle that in the story, because one of the gifts that the followers of the High Necromancer get is that you are undying. So he's, like, still in the body of a 16-year-old, even though it's been, like, 6 years since then or whatever. But he makes a deal with the Order of Eternal Flame to be their spy in exchange for a couple of things. I don't think we fully know all those things, but one of the things he asked for is for Helena to be his, okay? Now, it's implied that that is sexually, but we don't actually fully know what he means by she'll be mine, right? But it's assumed that it will be anything he wants for the time during the war, and then after the war, she'll belong to him. He says she needs to be willing to do this, but obviously understanding that willing is a relative term in war, right? And she's actually a healer and has some special kind of powers in the alchemy realm or anything. So this is now, she meets up with him. In the beginning, it's like twice a week at this one place where he will trade information, and she thinks she'll be trading her body. But that isn't what happens from the beginning. He doesn't immediately start wanting to have sex with her or anything. And in fact, it's a very interesting dance that these two do over months and months and months, actually. Sometimes they have almost cordial meetings where he'll hand off information to her. Sometimes he won't even meet with her. He'll send one of his, they're called like Northals or Necrothal. Okay, so that's one of the like zombie beings basically, to hand off a note to her. And then sometimes he will show up to her with very severe injuries. And what is fascinating in this version of it, so cool, there is one point where he gives a lot of information over to her that actually seems to maybe be turning the tides of the war a little bit. But because the information was almost kind of obvious that it was him who gave it, this leads to him being severely punished by Morrow is the name of the High Necromancer, or the Voldemort type character here. And so as punishment, he gets this, they're called arrays, but this would be kind of like the ruins in Manacled. He gets this array carved into the bone of his back, and it's been basically this gaping wound. And it's killing him because his body can't like stop it because it's a spell. And so even his undying body, which is able to regenerate, can't stop it. And so what's really cool in this version of the story, though, is, as I mentioned, he's been in the body of a 16-year-old this whole time, right? Try to look tough, but there's only so tough you can be when you didn't fully go through puberty, right? And there's actually a point where Helena makes a jab at him about, he has his shirt off one time when she's helping him out, and he's like, you checking me out? And she's like, no, I'm not interested in teen boys, basically. That kind of makes him mad. He's stuck in his body, you know, which is kind of funny. But anyway, this spell, or we're just calling it a spell, but you get it. He was actually able to, like, he kind of tricked them a little bit. Like, they were going to torture him, and they wanted to test out this possibility of being able to, like, etch a curse, basically, into someone's skin. And he kind of tricked them into letting him design his own punishment. And so he did actually design the array that got carved into him as like this sick punishment. I should have saved it. But what he ended up doing, let me see if I can find it though, because they designed this 8-sided like star type array into his back, and he picked the elements of it, and he picked calculating, cunning, devoted, determined, ruthless, unfailing, unhesitating, and unyielding. So, you know, sounds like some traits of a certain house we might know, right? Just maybe. But anywho, and so if he is able to survive this wound, it's going to do 2 things. One, the High Necromancer said, if you can survive this, which he isn't supposed to be able to survive this, if you can survive this, you know, he would have more power than ever. And not only would he survive it, but because he picked those elements to be etched into his bone, he will have those, like, talents, basically. And Helena can say that what she really wants is to make him eternally, you know, devoted to her. But really, she's starting to become attached to him. And she also, at that point in the story, because this was a little ways back, she realizes that, like, so much depends on him. And she also is thankful to him because, as far as she knows, they've been able to make a lot of progress because of the risks that he's taken. And this is when, you know, what's so powerful about Manacled in general is this is a story that is the weight of war and the unsung heroes that we may never hear about, right? The ones who make the decisions that no one else will make. And then will never get the credit for doing it either because it's pushing things to the edge. But anyway, she of course is able to save him. But she does some very powerful work in doing that. And not only now does it start to harden and calcify him. This is when, so this character, Cain, he originally had like black hair and I think hazel eyes. And by the time he is fully healed from this injury, which does take a very long time and a lot of effort on both of their parts, his hair has turned completely white and he now has silver eyes, which, again, sounds like someone we know. But I loved that touch that he survives this, but it also aged him. Because one of the things in the very beginning of the book, when Helena sees him for the first time, right, when she gets put into his house, she thinks, wow, he's aged. Because again, he is undying and he shouldn't have aged. Though a lot of the undying do tend to eventually show the strain of what is happening to them. I thought that was a cool feature of now we, the readers, are seeing why he looked different to her, even though she doesn't understand why. She doesn't know that she saw him or whatever. So where we're at in the story right now, though, is both of these two have already paid a very high cost. And this war is not really looking good for either side. But as I've mentioned, how does the light side in this story, how do they win when every loss they take feeds the other side? You know, that's an interesting thing. So the part I'm at right now, I know we're getting closer to like a tipping point, and there still hasn't been much romantic between these two. Like, she is keeping with the slow burn to this, and I love that, right? I love that so much, because that's one of my favorite parts about the Manacled love story, is how long it takes until it is this cold fire that just cannot be put out, but is a deep, deep devotion. Like, and where we've reached right now, there's this, like, basically it's a Christmas party. It's called something else in here. It's like a solstice eve or whatever. And at this party, Helena finally has some time off of work, and she goes to this party to see all of her friends, and they're all seeming so happy. And granted, they've had some wins, but they still don't know how they can end this war. Like, you know, but everyone else is being fed that, like, they've made the righteous choice by staying above the necromancy and not being willing to stoop to their level to fight back, which is something that Helena has put forward that they may have to do. And she was very just spurned for that, and like, oh, well, you're an animancer or vivancer, whatever, there's a bunch of different names that they have for what she does. You are tainted by evil for even suggesting that. But of course, we'll still have you doing our dirty work, right? That's the whole point of this story, you know. And it's already been mentioned to her by Cain before that their sides aren't that different, you know, because there are different things that both sides have done to kind of control their populations, right? He gives an example in it, which, sorry, I shouldn't go through every little thing, but it's so fascinating. I love this story so much. Is like, he says that the high necromancer may be more blatant in his control of his followers. And there are some ways that, oh, I need to get into one of my theories in a second. I have a theory about this. It's just that the Order of the Eternal Flame, they do their control in a quieter way. But there are still certain ideals that if you don't meet them, well, things aren't going to go too smoothly for you, you know? Things aren't going to go too smoothly for you. And that is what her being at this party and being told, oh, but we're so close to winning. And Helena is like, huh, everyone? Like, what do you mean we're close to winning? They're nowhere near close to it. And they're just not, like, getting it, you know? But then there's also the fact that Helena has just been told that she's supposed to kill Cain. And he was never supposed to live through that array that was put on his back. And the fact that she saved him has actually kind of freaked some of the good people out, because what lengths did she go to save this man who is climbing the ranks? And in fact, since she helped him heal, and all of those 8 elements I mentioned that he had put into this, his own curse that was going to happen to him, he is now rising quickly through the ranks and becoming a top general for the High Necromancer. And so he's now, you know, maybe he's getting too much out of being their spy. And now, instead of seducing him and having him be devoted to her, which is what she's been trying to do, they're telling her that she must kill him within 1 month. Now, I have a feeling that's not going to go so well for them. But what's it going to be like for, like, I don't know. We still have so much book left. We have so much of the flashback left. Like, I still have 300 pages of flashback left before we get to caught up to everything. But just remember that line, you know, Cain isn't at that point of the line yet where he says, you tell them that if anything happens to you, they're done for. Consider yourself as vital to the movement as, you know, their prince, basically. He's called something else, but the Harry Potter character is basically a prince in this world. And he's not at that place yet, but at some point he will be. And then it won't matter whether it's the dark or the supposed light side who tries to fuck with his woman. You will pay, right? You will pay. So, anywho, I am loving this. Like, truly, I'm loving this. I've just been sitting here absolutely riveted. But yeah, I am going to pause now because it's 1 a.m. and I'm going to go to sleep. Tomorrow, I need to film a different video. and get some stuff ready because I'm going to be gone for the weekend. But then I'm going to get back into this and hopefully finish it tomorrow. But that's where we're at. Okay, so I realized I needed to do an update. I've been listening for a few hours today, and I think the last time I checked in was, what was I on last night? I don't know, I think like chapter 47 or something. So I don't know, I've read another like 150 pages of it. We're getting closer to part 3. What the heck? Someone on the other side of the wall is being funky, but you guys probably can't hear because my air conditioner is as loud as a freaking bullhorn anyway. So yeah, the dread in my stomach, y'all, is so heavy, and like obviously you know where it's going. But what's wild about it, right, is that if this is your first time through this story, you know, you still have that same sense of dread. I mean, in fact, it's even more so, right? Because these are the flashbacks that we're reading right now. So even as we're finally getting to the part where they're both in love with one another now, which feels impossible at different points in the, you know, both in the like present time, and even when we first meet Cain, you know, all that stuff I talked about yesterday, how cruel he seems. Every time she thinks she's softening him a bit, he comes back just as cruel again. You don't understand how these two can fall in love. And I'm always curious if an author can make me believe it again and again, you know? Like, there are certain other stories too, and I'm so sorry to make this reference right now, but I'm going to do it. Like in Untouchable, which is my personal favorite dark romance of all time. Every time I revisit that story, I'm like, is she really going to make me like this guy who's an absolute psychopath and just horrible? And she does, right? Now, in that book, it's for very different reasons. I mean, in this one, we're literally dealing with war. And it's so painful, and the things that both of them have lived through and what they've had to do are cruel. And as we finally are getting some of the pieces of Cain peeled back, you do see how they are both very similar, right? Now, she may be working for what she believes is the righteous cause, and Cain doesn't think his side is righteous at all. That's why he is willing to betray them, and he has his specific reasons for being willing to do that. He's not doing it because he thinks the other side is good. He's doing it because the other side can hurt his side, right? But the more you get to know him, and the more that this world gets unraveled even more for Helena, she sees how they're similar. And when we reach the point in the story where they finally have had sex for the first time, and Cain finally is becoming obsessed with her, he reverts a bit to becoming cruel again. And that's really hard to see. And you in Helena's head are like, why is he doing this? As we unravel the story, like, I start to see Kane's point of view, even, and we don't get Kane's point of view in the story. It's all Helena's. It's third person point of view, all Helena's. But as he shares with her how he got in this position, why he was willing to work for the resistance, and now as he is rising the ranks, which I think in the last clip I talked about how they've told her she was supposed to kill him. We've been able to change that up because she finally gets him to, like, crack a little bit. And now she's able to tell the people she works for that, no, we don't need to kill him. He's gonna do what we ask of him to do. He explains that at first he just was expecting to be taken out, and he wanted to take out as much cause as much problems as he could when he was killed. But now that's even more amplified because he has made it to such a high position in the other side, or in the bad side, that if he does break down or die, it will cause great damage to the bad side. It would. But again and again, he's trying to die, and Helena saves him. Again and again, Helena saves him. And so she's enabled him to rise in the ranks as well, and now be in a position where he can truly cause some damage. But, you know, he makes it known to the Eternal Flame that Helena is not disposable. You know, she's not replaceable. And there, some of my absolute favorite lines from Manacled are weaved into this in such a touching way. One of them being like, you're allowed to feel good things, and you're allowed to want to make it out of this. And he promises, he's like, we're gonna get out of here. Like, let me get you out. And she's like, no, I want to continue to fight. And he becomes increasingly desperate because he knows there's no way for this war to end well. And at this point, he is in love with her. That's never spoken, but, like, it's true. He says things like, you're mine. I'm never gonna let you go. Please let me get you out of here. It's clear that he loves her, and that is genuine. Like, and it's so ironic to him because he didn't want to love her. He was never gonna love her, and now he does. And so the cruel irony of all of this is that he knew not to fall for her because he knew that her cause would always be more important than him. And he just wanted to fuck with both sides a little bit, you know? But now he does love her. And so the position that she's in as his liaison is so dangerous. And now they're just kind of all fucked by it, you know? Anyway, there's so many layers to this story. Obviously, it's so much. But we're in the part where things are getting very desperate. And again, even if you've never read Manacled, you know what we're leading to. Like, you know that wherever this past part goes, right? We went 4 years back. We know that it leads to Helena trapped in a tank, having forgotten her memories, eventually handed off like a piece of property to Kane Farron, and eventually impregnated by him. That is where we started this book. So you know that's what you're leading towards. And the more that he falls for her, and the more that you see how deeply he loves her, the more tragic the first part of the story becomes. Because she may not, she doesn't remember any of this, but he's had to look into the face of the woman that he loves, the woman that he would burn the world down for, and have her say she hates him. And also to have to rape her. And that is why he's having to take tablets to do this, and why he would have her close her eyes, and why he would immediately run to the bathroom and throw up and then run out of there, because it costs whatever bits of his soul he had left to do that. But if he wouldn't do it, she would be handed off to someone else, and he would never have her again, you know? And what we're working towards is that where we've just gotten to, we've just run into one of the characters that is responsible for where she ends up in the beginning, and we've now learned about the tanks that she starts off in, those deprivation tanks where they've kept people alive in them to be used for whatever they want. And so now we know about those tanks, which is horrendous, that they exist. So that's now looming over our heads. We know that Lila, who is, I'm just going to say, is kind of the stand-in for a Ginny character, is a fighter and has been one of the right-hand women to Luke, who is like our Harry Potter character. And she's pregnant, and no one else knows this, but like a few people do. Like Luke doesn't even know this. So we know that has happened. And we also know that the other side has the bad side has, the necromancers have increasingly come up with ways to defeat the power of the eternal flame. And the war is just evolving very quickly now. So that is where you get that dread in the pit of your stomach, because you know that they're not going to win, at least at this part, right? The war is not going to be won. And one of their best, you know, women behind the scenes is going to end up trapped in a tank. We know that Cain is going to end up as a right hand to the most evil being in the world, and he's going to end up married to this absolute idiot of a bad woman or whatever. And so we know that that's what we're marching towards, right? And it's horrific, and you can just feel it just waiting to come at you, you know? And that is the dread that is Manacled. That was the dread. We've even seen in this one that she's helping to develop manacles that will help to suppress the power. And of course their point is to be able to use them on that side, but obviously we know that she's going to end up in a pair of them. Like, it's all so, like, the way that SenLinYu builds the dread is unmatched. Like, it's absolutely unmatched. So I'm gonna get back to it. I will finish this tonight, so I'm sure there'll be some I plan to check in when I finish part 2, and we will then be going back to where we left off part 1 and see how they're gonna get out of this. But I'll check in when I get to that point. I have another, like, let me just check. I have this much of the flashback chapters left before we jump ahead to the present time, and it's all the shit that's coming for us. But I have to go to the gym, and then I have actually book club with my friends tonight, but I will be staying up till I finish this. So I'll at least film a clip when we get to part 2, and then I will probably film a clip wrapping this up at some point when I've slept on it. I don't know, we'll see. Maybe I will give you a piece of me absolutely losing my mind. We'll get to it. But all right, be back soon. Well, I finished part 2. And I'm just gonna keep going because I needed to get happier again. Not that this book has been happy at any point at all. And I was just reminiscing to myself, why was I so excited for this level of devastation? I know how much this was gonna hurt when it all literally blows up in our face. But here we are. Here we are. So, on to part 3. Just little under 200 pages to go. So, here we go. Well, I finished, guys. And I will, as I mentioned, come back to do a wrap up. But while it doesn't 100% give the same, like, feelings, because
there is a bit more of a buy-in you have to get for this story, because if you are a fan of Manacled and the source material, you have a more instant connection to the couple. That is true. And that will be up to each person if they feel that, or if they even read the original source material, you know. But I still felt it. And this book is one of the most, like, I mean, not that I could even say because I haven't lived through war, but I feel like it gets into the helplessness and pure devastation that war leaves behind in such a intimate way, but also so just like stark and non-flowery way. Like, it's just the facts of what's happening to them, you know? And then their reward at the end of it all is just to live. Like, that's all they want. They don't want recognition and they don't want statues. They just want to live. And I think that also this version, it doesn't quite, like, rub that in as hard. And, like, that's okay. Like, I think that's okay. Because in Manacled, you just sit in the ridiculousness of it for a really long time. Whereas in this one, it moves you through it faster, you know. There's not, like, 7 epilogues to it. But at the same time, that also means you're just like done with it then, you know? And it's just like, okay. But they lived, so I guess we just gotta move on now, you know? So, yeah, like I said, I'll come back to wrap this up when I don't look like a troll under the bridge, and try to summarize my thoughts more. And I'm still torn on, like, a rating for it. I mean, it's gonna be a very high one. I don't know if I can fully set it as high as I did for Manacled or not. I need to think about that. So I'm gonna do that and pull myself together. But really beautiful story, for sure. Very well done. And whether or not it hits the same for people who also read Manacled, or if it hits the same for people who haven't, I can't speak to that. Because would you feel as connected if you haven't? I don't know. I can't answer that, because there is no, like, before Manacled for me that I can tap into, but it was a good one.
Whew. All right, everyone. All right, okay. It is the next day from that last clip. And as you saw, I just filmed the intro, and now I'm going to try to wrap up some of my thoughts on it. And I did rewatch a little bit of the footage before I sat down to film this, just to get an idea of what stuff I talked about. But honestly, I'm probably going to recover some of the same ground. But first off, like I promised, I will show you the finished cross stitch. Here it is. It is on a pale green background. And this is a swan. And I get these designs are from an Etsy. He also has his own website too, but his name is Max Pigeon, and his Etsy is called The Pigeon Coop. So I think I can actually link this design the way that YouTube shop works, so I'll do that. But this is an adorable one that I was working on, and it's going to go on my wall of cross stitch that I have that are all of Max's designs. He's designed some really fun cross stitch patterns, and I did actually immediately start another one as well. But anyway, this is the cross stitch I was finishing up, and I did finish it actually right after right after I finished the book because I wasn't quite done with it yet. But there we go. That is the design I was working on. But yeah, let's talk about Alchemised and what kind of my final thoughts are after sitting with it for, I mean, it's only been 8 hours. Yeah, I really loved it. And I know, like, the way that I would kind of break this down, and again, I'm sorry, I didn't rewatch every bit of footage, and in some of the footage I'm very tired, and some of it it's crazy. But there were like 3 questions I was asking at the beginning, I believe, of this vlog that had to do with like, did it still feel as like, you know, dark and pull me in? Do I still connect with the characters? And do I think you need to read Manacled to read Alchemised? Because one of my critiques of the other, and so far it has only been one, fic that I've read, like Rose and Chains, that is based on the auction, and that is the only other fic to book that I've read so far where I've read the original. I know I've read others that have been fics first. I have. But that's the only one that I've read. And for me, I didn't feel like the world itself was as compelling if you hadn't read the auction before. Now, again, this is all based on my opinion, and I've had people directly tell me that didn't feel that way for them, right? And in this case, I was having discussions with one of my friends who, I know she's vlogging herself, so I don't want to steal any of her comments or say what she's going to say, so I won't. But her telling me some of her thoughts was making me kind of think more. So I can't remove what my thoughts are from what she was making me think about. And she was commenting on that this one as well felt not as developed as she wanted it to, and that a lot of your love for the characters came from the fact that they were stand-ins for Hermione. And I was really trying to assess that. And I think for me too, it took a while for me to get to the point where I was independently caring about Farron and Helena. And as I've shared in the vlog, I did. I don't have any problem calling them Kane and Helena. Whereas when I read The Auction, the only reason I remember Bryony's name is because it sounds like Hermione when it's said very quickly or whatever. And when I was actually listening to that one on audio, I really heard, it almost sounded like Myone was being said, which is a nickname for Hermione. And so it just felt very much like the same thing. And in this one for me, it is true that you don't understand much of what's happening in the beginning. And if you have read Manacled, you'll know quicker what's going on because you know what the setup is, right? But if you're just going into this cold with no foreknowledge of it, I think that actually works as well because we have a character who has amnesia. She's purposely tore her mind up so that no one can get to the secret she holds, okay? And so there are certain things that she remembers, but we still get remembered about all of them. It's also the type of story, and it's why so many people who, when you read the way that this story is set out, where it goes, the beginning, the flashbacks, and the ending, you immediately want to go back to the beginning because there are names that get dropped that now that you know who they are, you want to go back and remember what had happened to them. And when you're reading Manacled, you don't need to have to like be reminded who those people are, because when the name what's an example? Let's say the name like Lavender would get dropped. You in your head have a vision of who Lavender Brown is. And so when you hear that Lavender Brown was torn apart by, or whatever, you would know who that is, right? But when you're reading a story where you don't know who the characters are, who they're supposed to represent, which is how it would be in a fresh novel, you then have the experience of, once you get to the flashbacks and you see who those people are, you now echo back to like, oh God, we know what happens to that person. And I don't have a problem with that because that's how it is in other books I've read too, that have amnesia or that have stories where that type of thing is, what's it called? That type of narrative, geez, I can't remember all my literary terms. I'm so sorry. But that kind of trope is used. We'll just use trope as the example And I think it's very effective, and it also does make you want to immediately reread it, because once you have the weight of what the relationships are, it then makes the beginning even more dreadful, right? Now, again, in the case of Manacled, you have that dread fully in the beginning anyway, because you know those names. But in the case of this one, because of how violent the necromancy is and what we see, what the like Northals, I can't pronounce all this stuff, like, but there's both the Undying who can live forever, and then there is like the thralls that they've made, we'll just call them thralls, that are the reanimated corpses of beings. You can already tell that that's tragic, and it doesn't really matter if you know who that person is or not. For me, I still realize the weight of these human souls that are now being used in an empty way, right? It's a whole other level to a zombie apocalypse, right? Because with zombies, no one's controlling them, but it's still like loved ones that we see wandering around who have been reanimated, and we feel the loss. And in this case, it's even worse, because not only is it that, but the Undying can be placed into the bodies of people we've already loved, like basically possess the bodies of those we loved, or they can straight up, let's say it's a servant that you really cared about, and they're just being, used, and there's nothing left behind them. They're an empty shell. And it also has another layer, because in this world, the only way for you to reach, the religious true peace is for your body to be consumed by fire at the end. Otherwise, you're left in like eternal torment or whatever, which is a religious belief in many religions, as it is as well. And so for your body to be abused that way, and you never to be able to receive the holy fire, would mean you're separated from your loved ones forever, as well as your body's being desecrated. So there's all these layers on top of everything. So, but one thing that my friend made me think about is the fact that, do I have that same pull to the characters if they didn't represent the characters that I cared about so much? And the answer to me is that I can't separate that, okay? So I do think that if you've read Manacled, or even if you haven't read it, but you're reading this with the knowledge that it was inspired by a Hermione, and you understand intuitively that this character represents this person and this one represents that person, you yourself may transpose that love of those characters onto these characters, right? That is what a fan fiction is doing anyway. And I can't remove that from myself. Some of my other people who read this may do that and then expect the author to do more work for them, which they should. So that's not giving a pass to SenLinYu. But for me, I found myself just, the dread of the beginning of the story carried me through it, with or without me having to love the characters that they represent. I was feeling the horror of everything without that knowledge, right? And I'll be very interested to hear what people will feel who don't know that, who don't have that, because I would find their opinion to be very, very strong one. Whereas I am fully colored by the fact that I love Manacled, and I think that Alchemised synthesized, if you will, the best parts of Manacled for me. Specific scenes that absolutely devastated me are reproduced here, and it worked for me. And I don't think that, how do I even word it? It's so difficult, because I am all my experiences just as you are. And I can, in one sense, understand that my friend is right when they say, where does your connection to the story come from? Is it work that the author did, or is it work that your mind is doing? And I can acknowledge that that is correct. And I can also say that I was deeply moved by this book, no matter what the circumstances are that brought me to it. So that's a non-answer, because you have to make up that decision for yourself. But let me stop doing the comparison game, and let me just discuss how this made me feel at the end. I still wept, as you saw at the end, because this story, show such a stark depiction of the cost of war and the cost of lives in blood and treasure to win. And then also, what is winning a war? When both sides are so completely decimated, what is even left that we were fighting for? Or is it other countries who weren't a part of the war that have anything left to come in and take the spoils of the war for themselves, and cast characters who have put their heart and soul and blood and life force into surviving and placing them on a shelf as the villains to the story? And not that they never were partially villains in the moral sense, but very few get to remain untouched by war. And the actual truth in that winning the war for the victors doesn't necessarily mean, and in fact for most of them won't mean, getting to sit on the throne at the end or get to rule at the end, but it means just surviving with some of yourself left intact, with enough of yourself left intact that you can still love and that you can still have a will to live at the end. And that, I feel like, is what the tale of Manacled and Alchemised bring, in a way that I don't think many fictions fully go to, right? I feel like it still showed enough atrocities and brutal reality to stun me and put that pit of dread in your stomach, and to really make you feel like, how can anyone win this? Is there anything winnable about this? And yet when it was over, I still felt a lot of peace for Farron and Helena on their island alone, just happy to wake up every day. And, you know, for their child who is looking at the history books and seeing how their parents are categorized and thinking how unfair it is and what lies they've told. But at the end of the day, civilization is looking at that and deciding that, oh, we're so much more civilized than war. It is all right for us to sit in moral judgment about who was good and who was bad. And the people who actually survived it are fine with it, are fine with whatever judgments people are going to make, right? And they're just happy that they lived. And their reward is getting to have peace at the end. And peace means not being in the spotlight, not having their morals questioned, not having to fight for legitimacy every day, but just dissolving into oblivion. But I will say that the last line of this book still sits so hard when their child is looking at a book of history and the only photo of her mother is one where she's between these two lionized figures, pun intended, and it's saying that she was a non-combatant member and did not fight. And that's the weight that I felt at the end of Manacled, where we've seen these two who, they were always supposed to play mind games with one another. They were willing to do whatever they had for their side. One of them on a literal self-oblivion journey to take as many people out with him as he can, and someone else who so desperately wants to keep people alive that it is breaking off pieces of her bit by bit, only to be categorized as a footnote in history, and she's okay with it because she gave up so much to get there, and to just have her partner with her at the end, where they don't have to fight, where they can just tend to their wounds and live. And their daughter can't understand that. She wants justice. Her parents saved them all. Don't they know that? Don't they know what people had to do? But no one wants to hear it, because the realities of war are often too brutal for people to look into the face of and find anyone holy or good at the end, but the monuments we make of them that lie to ourselves and tell us that they were good people who won a war. And what will surprise me, well, do I mean will it or won't it? I don't know. What does surprise me and what I hope people take of it is that this is a very dark story, and it echoes things in the past we've seen before. And some of those things that it echoes of the past are things people don't want to talk about, and people that would try to cancel this story and say it's too dangerous or it glorifies certain things. And I would just urge you that just because something is popular and people are excited to read it, I think you miss the message when you think that Alchemised is glorifying certain things just because someone who's seen to represent one thing and someone who's seen to represent another thing end up together at the end. You can infer whatever from that you want. But if you read the story and you think just because they barely made it out alive and they get to live out their days alone on an island, that this is some roaring happily ever after and that a villain got away with something, I think you miss the point of the story. And you can sit in any moral judgment that you want about if you should be reading that and if we should be platforming that and if this or that should happen. That's fine, you can, but I think you then end up in the category of the people who just want to make the ones who made the true sacrifices in war a footnote to history. Because if we truly knew what the cost was, if you truly saw the bits and pieces that are broken off of these two in a fictional war, okay, with magic and with alchemy and with dead regeneration, you miss the point of using fiction to make us feel things so we don't have to experience them ourselves, truly. So those are the kind of thoughts that Alchemized makes me think. And to round this off, no, you don't need to read Manacled. And in fact, SenLinYu has said, don't look for it, don't read it. Read this version, which has been stripped of a lot of the pieces that would make it very clearly an HP property. And people can argue however they want about it. I don't care. I think there is plenty enough of this story and the writing skill that Sen has where you can read their work and see how powerful it is. Because this story is so strong. And yes, this might be where they needed to start their career because this is what they're known for. And people can say whatever they want about they could have started fresh and that their story is so strong that they could have written anything. But let's be honest, that's not the story people wanted. And you can say that all you want, but the fact is that this had almost 10 million hits when it was a fic. 10 million. And how many would they have gotten if they had put out a book that wasn't connected to this at all? I really want you to think about that, you know, because they say like, great representation with this author. But would you have read what they had to say if it wasn't dressed up like this? Because I have a feeling that if this type of story wasn't wrapped up in the controversy that it is, wasn't wrapped up in the history that it has, wasn't based on the story that it was, I don't know that as many people would read it and get to the message. And there's no way for you to prove me wrong because we can't know. Okay, we can't divorce the two. Because make no mistake, this is a dark story. And I wouldn't even call it a dark romantasy, even though, yes, there is a romance and it is a very beautiful one, in my opinion. Literally a rose in a graveyard. But I don't think that people would read it if it wasn't based on the IP that it was. And you prove me wrong with that, you know? Like, I don't think you can. I don't think this would get the attention that it has. And I think it is such a powerful story that I don't care how it got here. I just don't. So, anyway, I don't know. I don't know how much of this ramble I'll keep in. This is already a long enough thing. But this story just makes me think so much. And in my opinion, you should read this, heed the warnings that it has. I meant to touch on so much more than I did, but this is already so long. Like, I don't think it's quite as graphic as Manacled is. I think a lot of scenes that are very rough have been synthesized down so that you know what's happening, but it isn't as brutally in your face. I think that was a good decision. In fact, I think the brevity, but yet the weight of what they're dealing with after those encounters happens, I think it makes them even more powerful for them being brief and yet still carrying so much weight. Whereas in Manacled, because that was written as a serial, because it is so long, it has a lot of repeated beats over and over again that really hammer in the trauma. Whereas this, we have synthesized a lot of that down. So yeah, it is still very long, but I think that it has still been very finely honed in a lot of ways. And yeah, the entirety of the story is in this one. Yeah, I mean, it is 1,040 pages, so it's not like it was stripped that much down. But, you know, a lot of the other ones, they're making them in 2 or 3 or however many books they're going to do. And this is in one solid one. The whole story's in there. We'll see what SenLinYu does next. I'm very interested in where their career goes, because it is true that if they were able to write a story this powerful, I can't wait to see what they do next. But this was worth it to me. Okay, it was worth it to me. I think that it's heavy. I think that it's hard. But I also think that in this form, it's not any harder than some others out there. I just think that there's a lot of philosophy to weigh on with it as well. And at the very end of the day with it, I adore this story. I do. And one thing I was hesitating on is whether this is a 6-star read or not. And I actually don't know yet, because I am still struggling with, do I like it the same as Manacled? Do I like it the same amount? Because if you recall, Manacled was a 6-star read for me. It is my favorite romantasy I've ever read. And I don't know yet if I consider this exactly that same level. I don't know yet. So I had some people comment already on my review of like, it's not 6 stars. And I'm like, it's complicated to me. I don't know. I need to sit on it a little bit more and have more conversations with my friends, right? None of my friends else have finished it yet. We haven't talked. These are all just my thoughts. Like I said, I talked to one of my friends, but she had only read a few chapters. So I need to talk more with people before I fully am there yet. But I'm going to wrap this up now. Please tell me your thoughts on it. I truly, as I said, please don't come here with anger about the fact that I even read it. If you made it all the way to the end and you're still going to say that, I mean, thank you for the watch time, I guess, that you watched all the way through and are still going to say that. But like, I've read it. I don't need the moral judgments about if I should have or should I have not. I've read it. These are my thoughts. Take them for what you will. I do highly recommend it. If you read Manacled, I think you should read it. If you haven't read Manacled, you should read it. You don't need to, and you shouldn't read Manacled if you haven't read it up to this point. I'm sure you can find a copy somewhere, but don't do it, you know, because if you're worried about what it platforms or what it says, like, you don't need to read that. Okay. The original IP, people can say whatever they want, but this story was powerful. And if that inspired this, that's amazing to me, because what this has to say is so powerful, and our art all has to be inspired from somewhere. And to me, this is art. So I'm going to stop now, stop talking in circles. I know people are going to be pissed. That's why it's difficult. But there's also going to be some of you who are really excited. And I think you should be excited. I'm very excited for my special edition to come. My friend Helen ordered me a Waterstones copy as a gift, and I can't wait. I hope there are other special editions of it, because I loved it. One other thing I meant to say about the physical copy is that the art, you had to, I think, have like a pre-order to be able to get it. I was expecting there to be some art inside, because I said special art from Avondale, who is, who did original art for the fic. And there is only one piece of art inside the book from them. Otherwise, you needed to have like pre-ordered, and hopefully they'll make them available eventually. I would buy them and print them to put in here, just because it did make me feel a little sad that there wasn't art pieces throughout it, because that is, I mean, look at some of the art in these. Like, there were certain scenes that I miss the artwork for greatly. Let me find one of the other really good ones. Like, what some of these things mean. I really wish to have those. But yeah. Oh, this was amazing. So, anyway, yeah. I can't. I'm done. All right. I love you guys. Have a great day.